Welcome back to our next episode of JP6 Services. Now today we are going to install an EMCO 200 series storm door. Now, as with any installation prior to installing any product, you need to have proper measurements. So most of the time, or it should be all the time, but in this particular case, this storm door was pre-ordered prior to us arriving on site or prior to doing any estimate. So the customer already had their storm door, they had already measured it, and regardless of who measures the door, the installer should always measure before they open the box, and they should always measure their opening and see what door they have present on site. So what we're going to do first is we're going to verify our opening to make sure that our storm door is going to fit for this application. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure our width. So we're going to, in this particular opening, we don't have brick molding present, so this is actually going to go from jam to jam. This is how this particular opening is made here. So what we have here from my left to the right is we have exactly 36 inches. So this is actually good. This is a standard size 36-inch width storm door. Next, we're going to measure from the bottom of the opening. So we're going to put it on the concrete sill, and we're going to measure to the top of the opening. Now if you look here, that looks right about 83 and a quarter, let's say 83 inches. Now before we take down this storm door, we don't want to end up taking down a storm door and then opening up a box and then realizing, hey, the storm door is not going to fit, because then you'd have to reinstall the old storm door. So then what we do is we come over here. Now this box was already open when we got on site, and fortunately this EMCO 200 series already has the sizes written on the box. So what this one says is it's for a, here we go, 36 by 81 and 3/4. So that means that this storm door is 1.25 inches too short for the opening, which is not all bad. The width is fine, but the height is not. So what we're going to end up having to do is across the top of the door, after we remove the storm door, we're going to have to add some lumber. And it's only 1.25 inches, so we're going to give ourselves some room to work with, and we're only going to add 1 inch of wood across the top at the width of 36. So that's what we're going to do first. Well, no. First, we're going to remove the storm door. After we do that, then we're going to go ahead and add our wood across the top. We'll get to that in a minute. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the extraction of the existing storm door. The way I like to remove the piston, it's always the piston first is what I like to remove. I'll come down here, I'll come down to the piston, and I'll lock it. I'll lock the piston if it has one of these. Sometimes you don't have this luxury, but here we do. Once I lock the piston, what that does for me is that makes it so that I can slowly use the tension. Use the tension of the lock to pop that pin out. It comes out that easy, and then we can go ahead and take the piston out. In this particular case, this guy's in there good, so I'm just gonna break that one off. It doesn't matter. It's going in the trash. So we got the piston off, and that lets me work the door a little easier. So over here now we got a chain. I'm just gonna release the tension a little bit and pop that off. I just used my thumb underneath it, and I pushed my thumb up on the chain, and it came right off the S hook. So now we have the piston and the chain off. And whenever you're doing this kind of work and you're working on stairs, you should immediately clear your foot traffic. This is a tripping hazard. You can either break your ankle or worse, roll down the stairs. We're not going to do that today. Get that out of your way. Grab your drill. And I always like to start from the inside of the hinge. We'll start from the inside, screws, and then we'll close the door and pull the door from the outside. And this guy only had one screw. Hey, lucky us. So start with the one screw. We'll close our door, and then I'm going to set my ladder. After I get those hinge side screws out, this door should slide right off without any issues. I'm going to take your real estate there. Step back a little bit. And I'm taking the door down. Let's go ahead and set this on the side where it won't be in our way. We'll come back to that. Now after you get that storm door removed, now you can go with the rest of your instructions here. This is actually a nice opening. The reason why I say that is there's no brick mold for us to worry about. The framing around the door is already squared up. There's really nothing, no extenuating circumstance that we have to worry about for this installation. So we're going to remeasure right after we get this out. We know that we have 36 left to right, and then we're going to pull out our tape measure and we're going to measure from the base back up to the top. Okay, so here looks like 35 3/4. We got 36 right here, and we have 35 7/8. We could definitely make this work. We can make this fit. And across the top looks like 83 5/8. Let's see. No, 83 1/4. And we have 83. Okay, so we're just gonna call it an 83-inch opening because we're gonna use the smallest size to determine our ultimate or our finished size opening that we're gonna create for this storm door. So we know our storm door is designed for an 81 3/4 inch opening. We have an 83-inch tall opening, so we're gonna add 1 1/4 inch of wood across the top, and then everything else should just line up. Okay. So we're gonna take off the little trinkets that are around this opening here, and this one calls for a flathead screwdriver. Normally I like using a drill for everything, but sometimes you just don't have a choice here. So I tried using the drill to remove flathead screws, and more often than not I end up breaking the screw or damaging the tip. So I'm just gonna do this old school style and take these screws off with a regular screwdriver. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer than using a drill, but it's what we got. There we go. Cool. We'll just drop that right there, and we'll remove that from our footing area after we get this door closer hardware off. What I am gonna do, however, here is I'm not gonna remove the chain that's across the top. All of the EMCO doors and all of the Anderson doors I've ever installed out the box never come with the chain. They just don't. So if you ever have a chance to reinstall an old chain, I would probably keep it if it's still in good condition, because those chains can really save your door. If it's windy and the wind takes the door, more often than not what ends up happening is so much stress gets put on the jam and it'll rip your jam off, or even worse, it'll destroy your storm door, or across the top, depending on where your pistons are, it'll rip the jam in 2 locations. That chain, having that chain on your storm door can make a huge difference between you know, having a destroyed door or not. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna leave the chain on there, and then we're gonna remove the hardware at the top of the old storm door, and we're going to reinstall that into the new storm door over here. Okay. You're not still recording, are you? All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna prepare our opening. So the customer supplied me with an old piece of 2x4. That's okay, because that's exactly what we're gonna use. We don't need very much wood, so we're just gonna measure what we need out of it. And we're gonna cut ourselves a piece of 1 1/4 inch by 36 inch wood. So get that measured out. Right there at 36. Let's reset our depth here. There we go. Now from here, we're gonna take off 1 1/4 inch. And see, this guy's got a big old crack here. So we're gonna take it from this side and throw away the rest. So my saw already has a scale on it. If you're not comfortable just using your circular saw to cut or rip a piece of wood, you could go ahead and throw it on the table saw and then use the table saw to give you the 1 1/4 inch. Me personally, I just like, if I can avoid taking out the table saw to do a project, then I will. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get this cut. Say it's time for a new blade, huh? You serious? It's already dead. Definitely time for a new blade. Okay. Yeah, that's it. All right, so we got our piece of wood cut. We got 1 1/4 inch by 35 and 7/8 is what this guy comes out to be. And I've grown, I'll pick that up later. I've grown to be a real fan of these GRK trim head screws. These work great for almost any installation for a storm door or an exterior door too. They're great for trim. The profile of the head is so small you can putty over it and make it disappear with paint. So these require a T10 bit for your drill, and these are 3 1/8. I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy in. Phillips bit is here. I always tell somebody when I do something like that, because 3 minutes later I'm going to be saying, where's my Phillips bit? And if I'm by myself, I'll probably spend like 10 minutes looking for it. So my cameraman, when I ask him where's the Phillips bit, he'll say it's on the floor. Okay, so we cut this at 1 1/4. We're going to go ahead and screw this guy right into place. What we have here, we got a little chunk of wood here. We're going to remove that chunk of wood. We're going to remove this chunk of wood over here. Stop. All right, so there's a little small pieces of wood across the top. What I don't want to do is completely remove them and then end up having the aluminum that's around it doesn't reach far enough, and then I'll be stuck with either having to reinstall those pieces of wood, or I could just cut them in place, which is actually what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut those pieces of wood in place so that when I install my block here, I can just oscillate them off. Actually, my guy's going to go like that. Right there. This is my oscillator. Brilliant. That's what we want. Now we can install our block at the top. Now I know what some of you might be saying. Why are you installing a block of wood if the EMCO 200 series already comes with an extender? You're right. And the extender will do its purpose. You know, it'll definitely fill in from the outside that gap. But I personally like to have the opening set to the size of the door as it's designed. When you use the extender across the top, then on the inside you'll have this large gap between the top of the door and the bottom of the frame. I don't like that. So I always like filling it with wood. At any point in time, they can go ahead and give this a quick sanding, some light sandpaper, and paint it, and it's gonna look amazing. Now they say never put screws in your mouth. So this is one of those times where it's do as I say and not as I do. Alright, so just patted down the opening. So before we install the door, we're going to remeasure, make sure that we are not less than 81 3/4. Or we are right at exactly 81 3/4 on that side, and 81 7/8 on this side. Hey, I'll take 1/8 of an inch any day. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this storm door set. We're gonna get our drill ready, get our Phillips head bit. See where I put the bit? Damn, cameraman, I told you supposed to. There's something really nice about these EMCO 200 series storm doors, that they come with these, I'll call them jigs, or little clips, little add-ons that you can put onto the door that help facilitate the installation of the storm door. So I always like to keep these. I've installed many EMCO 200 series doors, and I like to keep these because these really help with the installation of the storm door. I believe the EMCO 100 series, or the lower end doors, lower than these, they don't come with these clips, and that's okay. The distance between the back of the clip to the face, or the face to the back, however you want to describe it, is 3/8 of an inch. So if you measure it, you run your measurement there, you see it's right at just a hair over 3/8 of an inch. So then you can either, to help install a storm door that doesn't come with these clips, just cut a quick strip of wood at 3/8 of an inch, and you could tape a piece at the top of the door on the handle side, and at the bottom of the door on the handle side, and then that'll help you give you the gap that you're going to require for the installation of the storm door. So before we even get to that point though, I'm going to go ahead and set these clips right over here, ready to go. I have 2 of them, so I'm going to use 2 of them. I have 3, but I had 2 and one came with the door. I'm going to go ahead and install the Z-bar on the hinge side. So I grab my hinge Z-bar, and I always like installing the door facing the opening as I see that it's needed to be installed. So I'll grab the door, I'll stand it up, I'll look at the opening, and then we could see against the frame where the old piston was installed, so I know that's going to be my hinge side. So I stand up the door in the same orientation as how it's going to be installed. I know that this side is going to be my hinge side, so then I'll lift the door, lay it onto the cardboard. Oh yeah, by the way, whenever you're going to install a storm door, always use the cardboard that it came installed in as your working space. This saves you so much headache. You don't accidentally scratch the door, you don't accidentally ding it, because you're working on an actual workspace of your storm door. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this screw, which is the second screw from the top. It's always the second screw from the top. That second screw from the top is the guide for the rest of the installation of the Z-bar. So when I do that, I remove that second screw from the top. The second hinge, bottom screw. Oh, that's a lie. It doesn't line up at all. This guy doesn't line up at all. Here we go. Is it this guy? Oh, this thing is a liar. Okay. So we can't use that as a... You still recording?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you caught all of that, if my cameraman stopped recording or if he kept recording, but this is the issue that we're running into. Normally, the second screw from the top lines up with the bottom hinge, and that'll give you the exact spacing that you need. Now this is a custom order door, so I guess EMCO didn't pre-drill on the hinge side where the hinge location screw is supposed to go. So that's not a problem. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and eyeball it. So really what it is an eighth of an inch from the top of the door. That's where the end of the Z-bar is supposed to go. And that's what we're gonna do. So I'm looking at it over here. That's about an eighth of an inch. When I get this set, then I'm gonna pre-drill a hole in one spot. Then I'm gonna grab the same screw that I took out. Where'd the guy go? Christ almighty. From the installation kit, can you grab me some screws? Alright, we're gonna go ahead and get our screws in place. So the silver screws in the installation kit are the ones that are used for the hinge side. We'll start with that. It'll help if I put the bit in its place, right? Okay, we got our first screw set. We're gonna close it. We're gonna make sure that we have our 1/8 inch spacing. So bring the camera over here on this side. Now, if you look right here, the Z-bar extends past the door about an eighth of an inch. You can see that. So that's about all the spacing you need when you install this Z-bar, the hinge side Z-bar. And the rest of it, we're just gonna go ahead and pre-drill all the screw holes so that we can get all of these installed. Once you got that one set, you pre-drill the rest of the hinges. See this screw right here? That was actually supposed to be drilled at the location of where the hinge is supposed to go. That's okay. They missed it. It is what it is. Sometimes these little errors are good to catch, because if this didn't happen and if this installation went perfectly, then if it happened to you and you'd be like, what do I do? Well, we've already solved that for you. Silver screw. Let's get all of these little silver screws out of here. If you notice, the way I'm taking the screws out is I'm poking them through the bag, as opposed to just cutting the bag open and spilling all the screws out. That way I don't gotta go hunting for screws. They're all in the bag. Okay, so here's one thing I want you to notice is before I put the next screw in, I make sure that all my hinges are above the door. Because sometimes what might happen is you might have the hinge below the door and you don't notice it. And you'll put that hinge in there and you're like, doggone it, now I got to take that screw back out just so I can get that hinge back in place. So make sure that all your hinges are on top of the edge of the door. Okay, so we got our hinge size Z-bar set in place. Before you walk the door up, make sure that you have both screws on your hip and you install the sweep on the door. When you pre-install the sweep on the door, make sure that the sweep side is on the inside of the door. So you're just gonna go ahead and slide that guy right on top. Some people like to tuck it inside the frame. Some people just like to put it right on top because it's faster. Really, it comes down to your preference. It doesn't really change anything for the door. So for these purpose, we're gonna put it right on top of the frame, on the top and the bottom. Then, cameraman, if you can go over there and grab the sweep jig, that orange piece over there. Thank you, cameraman, that doesn't want to show his face. Let's let that guy get set in place. Now that we got that there, I'm gonna grab the screws that I need for the installation, which is in the yellow bag. Oh yeah, by the way, these orange stickers or orange little blocks, they're also used for the installation of the storm door. And I'll go ahead and explain that in a minute. But first, let's get this storm door up. So we're gonna get this guy set. That right there, and then I'm going to set my little spacers here. I'm going to put one at the top of the door. These doors only come with one, which is fine. I fortunately have two of them, which is why I said earlier, if you can cut a piece of wood at 3/8 of an inch and tape it to the top and the bottom, this is why you would make two pieces for the top and the bottom. You would tape it to the door so that it gives you the spacing that you need. And you just lift the door right in place. Get these ready. A little bit. Set. Guys in. So this is what we got. Spacers holding the door exactly where we want it. On the hinge, on the handle side and across the top. If you look up there, the spacer got it exactly where we want it on the handle side. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pre-drill as far as I can reach. Here, fortunately I can reach the top. I'm gonna pre-drill the uppermost holes just to get me started. I'm using my elbow and my knee to hold the door in place. So in the installation kit, you have screws with paint on the head and silver screws. I know I shouldn't have to explain this, but the screws with the paint on the head go on the exterior of the door. The door already wants to work. Okay? So Let's finish pre-drilling these. Put that in my pocket. Phillips bit it back on. Get the installation screws from the yellow bag. Now all of the EMCO and Anderson doors, the bags are all color coded the same. So the first set of screws that you're going to use come in the red bag, and then the second set of screws you're going to use comes in the yellow bag. Okay, so these simple tricks that we just established of patting down the opening to the size that you need, using the clips on the top and the bottom of the door to go ahead and bring the door square with your opening, they just make a huge difference in a good installation. Once you get the door hung, you go ahead and just remove your clips. All three of them you can remove. Doesn't matter anymore. And if you're gonna install more storm doors in the future, at a minimum, keep one of the clips with you, because you know that the storm door is gonna come with its own. I always like to keep two with me. That's just my preference. And these, I don't normally use them, but I do have them set in the van. So sometimes I'll need them, and at least I'll always have the clips available with me, because the Anderson 100 series don't come with any of these clips. All right, so now back to the little sponge spacers that I was talking about earlier. So these little sponge spacers, they come in a pack of 3, and they're always in a yellow bag. So you want to put one on the edge of the door at the top, on the edge of the door in the middle, and on the edge of the door at the bottom. Right there. What those little sponges do is they give you the right spacing for the handle side Z-bar. But before we even get to that point, I am going to install the top Z-bar. The top Z-bar is over there, and I need to grab my ladder. Ladder set. Since we're stuck on this side, on the edge of the stair, I'm gonna have to set the ladder like that. Okay, let's get our top Z-bar and get that guy set. Now we already gave our spacing at the top where there's just enough room for this Z-bar to slide in. When you put in the Z-bar, you want to make sure that you're spacing across the top on the hinge side all the way up to the handle side, that the spacing between the door and the top Z-bar, the drip bar, is even all the way across. And that's what we're going to do when I install this drip bar at the top. I'm going to get my 3 screws ready. And I'm going to get my drill bit ready. Get the Phillips bit ready. Installed. I start with my hinge side. I press it up against the Z-bar. Okay, that's good. Now I close the door, and then I look on my hinge side, and I look over to the handle side, and I raise the Z-bar till the space is even all the way across. Once I get that even spacing, I can go ahead and pre-drill can go ahead and pre-drill where I'm gonna put that handle side screw. And that's gonna go right there. Okay. Your mama. There we go. Okay. Get my center guy here. Now you see now why I chose to put in a piece of wood across the top. If I didn't, the Z-bar would not have had a place to bite. It would just be floating on the center. You would only have the left and the right screws grabbing the frame, and there would be nothing in the center grabbing it. So it's important that you set your opening to the size of the door you're installing. There you go. My gapping is even across from left to right. Okay, now we can grab our handle side Z-bar. Now this is where having those sponges already set comes in handy. Because those sponges, they automatically give us the distance that we need and you press the Z-bar against the sponges, and that gives you a perfect gap. So I'm gonna get my drill ready and a couple screws in my mouth. And I'm gonna get the 2 top screws into the Z-bar. Where did I put the drill bit? Oh, there it is. Okay. Press it against the sponge. Pre-drill. Screw. The next sponge here, press it against there. Okay, and then I got the next sponge at the bottom. Now I can pre-drill the rest of the holes, and it doesn't matter because we're set on 3 locations already where we already put the sponges. Okay, frame is set. Next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna remove our ladder so we can open our door. So if you're wondering what all these little marks are, that's just grease. We're gonna go ahead and wipe that off with some mineral spirits, and that'll make the door look great when we're done. Okay. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna install our hinge side screws. Same concept, pre-drill everything. It just makes life so much easier for you. If you try and force a screw through, let's say if you're trying to go through oak, or you're trying to go through hard pine or aluminum capping, a lot of times you put so much force on it and then you won't get the screw in straight. It'll like do what it wants. So if you pre-drill, the screw goes exactly where you meant it to go. And that's what we're gonna do. Pre-drill everything. Now if you notice, I don't pull the screw in so tight that I bend the Z-bar back, because sometimes there'll be a little bit of space in the backside, and if you do that, what ends up happening is you'll actually deform the Z-bar, and then when you close the door you won't get the seal. So the Z-bar is already designed or bent in a way where it seals with the door when it's shut. So when you put in the screw, as soon as the screw makes contact with the aluminum, you stop. Here's the last screw. Okay, that's that. Now, let's go ahead and get our handle set in. So the handle set is going to be in the installation kit. The installation kit comes with the piston and the handle and the lock. And these things are actually really easy to install. All that's required is really what you have. You're definitely going to need a 5/16 inch drill bit. Nothing bigger than that. Anything bigger than that, and it's going to show past the size of the handle set. So these always come with a template. The template tells you exactly what you need to know. Center of line of door, and then you just fold it where it says door edge. So center of line of door is normally 39.5. So you measure 39.5 from the bottom of the door going up, and then that should be the center line of the door. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get our tape measure, which is not on my hip. We're gonna lean up here. We're gonna use our little spongy guys. And this is what's gonna hold our paper in place. We go to the bottom of the door. Bottom of the door, and we set it the center line to 39.5. So there, that's it right there. 39.5, maybe just a hair up, but you know, that's good enough. Okay. Once we got that set, I'll use the little spongy guy, and that'll hold paper where I want it to be. Then I'll get my drill bit, put it on the drill.
And the drill.
Got it. Okay. Hold it in place and pre-drill. Flip the door. So I marked it. 3 spots here, 3 on the other side. Throw the template to the side. Go ahead and drill halfway through the door. Don't poke all the way through, because sometimes what ends up happening is the drill bit will actually veer off left and right, and then your holes won't be straight through the door. There you go. Once those are pre-drilled, now you can put this guy back in your pocket and get your 5/16 drill bit that we have in the box down over here. Okay. And in those 3 pre-drilled pilot holes that we made, that's where we're going to drill the 5/16 inch holes for the handle set. Take it off a hammer. Just go halfway through. We go on the other side. Cool. That's that. Put our battery back on our other drill. And let's get our Phillips back on that drill. Okay, so now we got our handle set. It's gonna have our little thumb button. Let's set that. In the blue bag, you're gonna have your spring. Your screws. And a little push bar. Okay. Yep. Set that. Get our spring ready. Yep. The other side. Line it up, and there you go. Now, at this point, I don't normally like going straight with the drill, because if you go with the drill, you run the risk of cross-threading it, and then you're in trouble, because then you can't undo it. You'll probably end up breaking a screw, or even worse, cross-threading it where you can't install the doorknob anymore, and then having to go get a new set. So I always do this, always end up doing this set by hand. Can you have that, little Mr. Helper? Can I have the button too? I need the spring too, and all of it that fell. That's it. So I'm gonna record up there. Scratches. All right, now we're gonna put on strike plate. The strike plate we have to do from the inside. Okay. I can tell already this is gonna need, it's gonna need a big shim across the back just so that it can reach the latch. It is what it is. Normally these only come with two little plastic spacers, little shims for the back, but here it's just gonna need way more than that. That's what we got. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get some wood, and we're gonna cut wood at a 1/2 inch thick. Yeah, that looks more like 3/4 of an inch. So we're gonna cut a piece of wood at 3/4 of an inch by, I believe this is 2 inches. Yeah. Okay, we just saved the door. And that was the wind pulling that door. That would have slammed against this railing and dented the door, which is the whole point of trying to save it and putting up that spring. Which, matter of fact, we should put that spring on now. So cameraman, if you could come down here and hold this door while I go grab the piece for the top, so we can save that door while we install it. All right, so I just pulled the 2 screws off the storm door from the old one, and I got the little bracket for the top of the door that already has the S-clip installed, and we're gonna go ahead and put that guy in place right now before we continue the installation. What I don't want to happen is we get another little breeze, then it takes our door from us, and we end up having to buy another door. We're not cool with that. So let's put that. So the way we're gonna do this, put it on the S-clip. We're gonna open the door. We want the door to stop right about there. That should be fine. There you go. That is great. All right, let's cut our 3/4 of an inch piece of wood here that we need. Okay, so we went ahead and cut ourselves a small spacer that is gonna go right where we're gonna install the strike plate. So I cut it where the depth of the wood is the same as the depth of the Z-bar, which should actually make for a really good installation for this guy. So I'm gonna set it right where I want it, which should be centered with the handle set. Then I'm gonna pre-drill 2 screws. Can I get a battery from the charger?
Yeah.
Keep recording. Set. We're going to pre-drill 2 holes, and then we're going to use the trim head screws to grab it. Did you record what I did down there?
Just
You did. Okay. No. So too much. To make it thinner than that. Okay, you can stop recording. Cool. Now, if you notice, the piece of wood that I cut fits right behind the groove of the Z-bar. That's about the perfect depth that you want when you look for a spacer for whatever type of strike plate you decide to put on these Anderson or EMCO series doors. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw, I'm gonna pre-drill first. Yep, that grabs it just right. Cool. So now, we're gonna find our height, which is right about there. Height's right there. And we're going to pre-drill that'll be our first setting. And depending on how you slide this guy in or out, it'll put tension on the seal of the door. So I'm gonna try this spot first before I put in the second screw. Let's see how that works. And that's, man, that is really good. All right, we'll stick with that. We'll go ahead and put in our second screw. Then I'm gonna loosen the top one, and I'm just gonna bring it just a hair in lower so it makes a tighter grab on the door. Yep, cool, that's it. The second attempt worked better, but I still wasn't happy with it, so I added another block of wood at 5/8 of an inch, and it worked perfectly. Go ahead and get that spacing. See how completely it grabs the latch. All right, so like it almost completely fills in the space between the door and almost rubbing on the body of the latch where the latch is completely engaged on the strike plate. That's the spacing or the gap between one, and here's your lock. So no one should be able to pull that open unless they break the door. All right, so we're almost done. Last thing we gotta do is we gotta put the piston on and then put the 2 screws across the bottom for the sweep, and this installation is complete. We're gonna pull the door shut. Then we're gonna get our box here. And a box here with our screws. And there should be a green bag of screws. The green bag of screws is outside. Can you get that for me? Or we can just open backwards. Okay. So remember, as with everything I've been saying, not everything, but what I have been saying throughout the installation is always pre-drill, which is what we're gonna do here. We're gonna put it in the general location that the other one was in, so we don't have a bunch of holes throughout the entire jam side. Pre-drill our 3 holes. After we pre-drill our 3 holes, we can go ahead and start screwing these in. I always like to put in the center screw first. Then we grab our piston here. Grab this guy. Snap that in place. And that'll stop the piston to where you need it to be for the installation. You grab your little pin. Drop your pin. And that gives you the perfect spacing that you need for this guy. You can eyeball this. I like to make it where if you look at it, it looks level. Remember, when you pre-drill here, just enough to pierce. You do risk going all the way through the door. So just enough to pierce the aluminum. Now we can get that guy off, slide this on. Pop off that. Yep, and that gives us just the same right amount of tension for this installation. Open the door, test it out. Don't have to do anything. There you go. It's already, the speed's already set for us. And then we're gonna bring down our sweep where it makes contact on both sides. Looks like there's a dip in the center. There's nothing we're gonna do about that. The sweep is touching the hinge side and the handle side on the ground, and there's a dip in the center, which that's actually very common. We're gonna pre-drill our holes on the sweep. Remember, just a touch, just enough to pierce the aluminum. And the screws for this one are in the pink bag that came in the set. So if you can please grab the screws from the pink bag. Which is why I don't like cutting the bags open to get all the screws out, because then you just gotta look for a bag and you don't have to go looking for 20 screws somewhere on the floor on the project site. It. And then the drill bit you keep for yourself. Okay, that's the installation. So for after you install the door, I always like to tell the customer to call the 800 number that's located on the sticker on the Z-bar. There's an 800 number there. You call Anderson, give them that serial number, and then that initiates the time line for the warranty through Anderson. Other than that, your installation is complete. There are a couple things that we could change here. I might decide to do this after the video, but I'm going to put a little block of wood here at the top where the spring is actually at the same height as the build down that I did here, and then that'll make it so that it doesn't rub on the Z-bar. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna do that. I don't think you guys need me to make a video on that. I'm just gonna cut a little block of wood, which is gonna be the same thickness here. I'm gonna remove this double-headed nail, and I'm gonna put the double-headed nail right on the jamb of the doorway. And that's it. Comments, like it if you like it. If you don't like it, hey, I'll take the comments on that anyways. And thank you for joining me here for this installation of the EMCO series, or EMCO 200 series storm door. Oh, one more thing. Let's go back over here. Now here's the spacer. The spacer I was talking about for the top of the storm door. I'm gonna go ahead and install it anyways. Mainly because it's just gonna look a lot nicer across the top, where you see where the old Z-bar was for the old storm door, and you can see where the bottom of my wood is still seen there. So if I put this piece up there, it'll actually make it look a lot cleaner. So I'm gonna do that now. And then it'll be the end of the installation. gonna get any closer in my face with that camera?
Woods.
Okay, there you go. Well done. Thanks for watching. All right, so I said I was gonna install a block of wood at the top for the chain, so there it is. I installed the block of wood at the top so that it doesn't rub so much onto the frame of the door. And I moved the location of the double-headed nail where the spring goes, so now when we open the door, it doesn't rub on the frame. So now that's the final part of the installation. Customer can paint that at their own leisure. And here is the final installation of a EMCO 200 series storm door with all the complications. Thank you.